Hi, welcome back. I'm Debbie from Just a Different Life, and this is Sean.
Hello there. How you guys doing today?
Today we're going to talk about adoption. For those of you that don't know us, we are the adoptive parents of 13 children.
18 overall, including our 5 biological, but 13 adopted. So today, what we like to do is answer questions that you've posed to us in some of our other social media Just a Different Life accounts. So what was the one question that seems to come up quite often?
So the question that we've been getting is, how long does it take for a child to settle into your home? So that's going to be the focus of our whole talk today, because there's some different factors that weigh in as to why it takes or how long it takes for a child to settle in.
Yes, and we're talking post-placement, from the initial placement time is what we're talking about right now. So how long does it take for a child to settle in?
So I think to consider how long it's going to take for a child to settle in, we have to look at what their placement looked like and the age of the child. For us, we're going to be talking about children that are up to 12 years old, so between 5 and 12.
Yes.
And what it looked like for them. So if you watched many of our videos, you see our younger children on those videos that were placed much younger, but our other children that aren't on our videos very much because they're adults now, they were all adopted between the ages of 5 and 12. And we're going to talk about how long it took for them to settle in.
So there's a number of factors that have to be taken into consideration. We can't give a definitive answer that you're going to be experiencing, disruption for the first, say, 6 months. It's going to vary child by child, and depending on their disabilities or their abilities, as well as their previous circumstances. Where did they come from? Not just a geographical area, but also where they came from, family background, their genetics, where do they come from? So all this has a role to play.
So I don't think that age really plays a factor in how long it takes them to settle in.
No, we've done a number of adoptions, and we've had various results from those adoptions as far as settling in goes. And I'm going to be really open and honest with you right now. They don't always settle in completely.
So the ones that we did have, the adoptions that we had, which ones were most successful?
The most successful ones were dependent on the foster parents, because all the children that we've adopted came from the foster care system. And it was really dependent on their attitude towards the adoption. You've got to remember that foster parents are going through a bit of a grieving process as well. So all of that comes into play. It's not just based on the child and their experiences. It's a lot of the background noise that comes with it. So a lot of the foster parents are in a state of grieving. Some are not willing to accept adoption. Some are super supportive. We've experienced I would say the full range, right from one extreme to another, where we've had, one foster parents refuse completely to acknowledge or to support or to help in any way, shape, or form, where we've had other ones where one of our adoptions, the very first time we met the children, they were calling us mom and dad.
And I really think that plays a lot into how the children settle in. So the children that were very well prepared, even when it was hurting the foster parents and they were grieving tremendously, when they were able to put aside their feelings in front of the children and be very supportive and encouraging, and that this is a really good thing, that helped the children to settle in faster.
Yes. The foster parents play a very, very critical role, as do the social workers too. But remember, the social workers, they see a little snapshot of the children here and there. They really, in my humble opinion, don't have a full grasp on who the children are. I don't think they ever can, because their case may be looking after many different children. So they only see a snapshot in time. They don't get to see what the children are like day in, day out, hour by hour, minute by minute. So it's really unfair to really have a lot of expectations on the social workers. They can help guide for sure, but to have the expectation that they know everything that's going on really shouldn't be there. And once again, with the foster parents as well, it really depends on how on board they are. So should we start off with a foster parent that was really on board? We'll start off with that one adoption. Does that sound reasonable?
Yep. So one of our adoptions, the foster parent, she was really on board. She had really prepared the kids. They were very excited about the fact that they were getting adopted.
And how long do you think it took them to settle in?
Those particular children, they pretty much settled in right from the get-go. Like, they moved in and it was like they had been here for a very long time.
Yeah, they slipped right into their roles and positions in the family dynamics, which is another issue, right? I mean, the dynamics of the existing family, when you start inserting other people into that dynamics, then there gets to be a bit of a pecking order that has to be established, and everyone's got to know their role and their placement in the family. So another dynamic to consider as well. But this particular one, and notice we're being very coy. We're not saying which adoption it is. We're not mentioning the children by name. We're doing that for a purpose because we respect their privacy. But they slipped right in. It was very, very smooth transition period.
Another adoption that we had, it was a very sudden placement. We had gone and visited the children and met them for about a week, and then they were going to come and stay with us for about a week so that we could get to know each other. And it was going to be a placement that was drawn out. But the week that they came to see us, the social worker arrived with them and a truck full of all of their possessions and the children, and she said, we've had a breakdown with the foster home, and you can either keep them or we'll set the kids up in foster care in your area and do a slower progression.
And these children had traveled with the social worker halfway across the province. There was no ability for them to go back. That was not going to be an option. And I was the one who went and picked them up in a town where the ferries pull in. And as Deb said, the social worker said, I'm sorry to do this to you, but this is what reality is looking like. So did we tell them, yeah, send them off to another foster home?
No, we didn't want them to have to get to know yet another family and have all that emotion that goes with being placed into another foster home with the thought that they're going to eventually be adopted. So we said, okay, let's do this. So we had met the children briefly in their town, and then they moved in. And for the most part, they settled in pretty good.
They did. It took a little while. How many months would you say?
I'd say a few months. Some of the things, it depends on the holidays and traditions that go on within your family. Once the kids have gone through a whole
cycle of
then they kind of know what to expect, so then that makes it easier for them. But with that particular adoption, one of the children, he didn't want anything to do with the social worker. He wouldn't even say goodbye to her because he had been through so much, and it turned out that the children were being abused in their foster home. So that's why the foster home was shut down, and he was afraid that she was going to take them back, and he wasn't going to even say goodbye to her. He just wanted to be somewhere safe.
And keep in mind that particular social worker, we maintained contact with her for a very long time afterwards. A very, very lovely person, and she worked very hard on our behalf and the children's behalf to make this as smooth and easy of a transition as she was able to, even though she lived halfway, or 3/4 of the way, across the province here. And we still think very, very highly of her. She did work hard for us, but from a child's perspective, they were afraid and they didn't want to, have that risk of having to go back. So it took a few months, and as Deb says, that we have to cycle through, and this really applies to every child that gets adopted, is they have to experience all the traditions that normally go on in a year, because the traditions they've been used to have been totally disrupted, whether it's Christmas, whether it's Easter, Thanksgiving, or even summer camping trips. things are very, very different when they move into your home. And a word of advice, I think personally that it's better that the family maintains their own traditions rather than trying to duplicate the child's traditions, because to do that will not work so well.
But having said that, I think you can bring in some of their traditions, but try to make it your own. So you have your own traditions and the child says, we used to do this. It's okay to add some of those things, but you're wanting to keep it your own, not we're going to have it the way Joey did it in foster care. We're going to try and make a tradition that's going to be able to be moved forward. And taking a lot of pictures, I think that really helped with the kids settling in, because they were able to look back at the pictures, or we've been doing YouTube videos for a while, so a lot of kids are reviewing the videos, and I really think that helps for them to settle in, because they're able to reminisce, and it helps bring back those happy memories, even if they weren't quite emotionally there when that first occasion happened. They're able to look back, and it helps reinforce that for them.
Yes, shall we talk about our worst of placements?
So our worst placement, the foster parents had told the children, don't worry, you're not going to get adopted. And the social worker is like, yes, we are going to place them. If you, the foster parents, don't want to adopt the children, then we're going to have to place them somewhere else. So the kids were constantly told, you're not getting adopted, we're not going to let it happen. And then some of the birth family joined in on that voice, saying, no, you're not going to get adopted, don't worry, it's not going to happen.
Mixed messages for the children is the worst for the adoptive parent. Would you agree? When the children are getting that kind of mixed messages?
It was hard on us, but I think it was harder on them.
Yes,
it
definitely.
was harder on the kids. So the social workers were pushing for the kids to come and have visits, and us to go and visit the children. And then, as to be expected, the foster placement broke down, because the kids at this point, they were so out of control because they just didn't know what was going on, and the emotions and everything had them so unregulated. The foster placement broke down, and guess what? We got the kids within a week again.
Again, not an ideal situation, but you do what you have to do. As the adoptive parents, you try to pull out all the stops that you can. I'm not going to give any false hope or false promises here. It's not always going to work. You can do the best that you can. You can read all the books that you want. But the one thing that you can't do is say, well, the book says it does this if you do that. And that's pigeonholing these kids into a mold that you cannot put them into. If you've met one child in foster care, you've only met one child. They're all unique individuals, and you always have to keep that in mind.
And you don't know what emotional baggage, for all better terms, that they're coming with. You don't know what's happened in their past. Even as an adoptive parent, you don't know everything that's happened to the children and how you can best help them. You just have to use your gut and do the best that you can.
And the other thing I should mention too, that even if the children have experienced abuse, whether it be with their birth family or in the foster care system, they will still be fiercely loyal to that because it's something that they know, something that's familiar to them. So when you take them out of that familiar situation, and you might think, I'm the white knight that comes in on the horse and I'm going to save everybody. That's not the case. You've really got to tailor your approach to each of the children as an individual. What works for a brother may not work for their biological sister.
So with that placement, the kids were placed here within a week because the foster home broke down, and then the foster parents decided, we're not going to let you have your things. And that brought in more turmoil for the children. They've been, in their mind, dumped at this new place. They don't get to have their things anymore. But my foster parents and my birth family said I wasn't going to get adopted, and now look at, I'm here. I'm sure they're going to come and rescue me.
And the fact that they're hanging on to some of their personal belongings and not transferring them over puts that false hope into the children that maybe they are coming back, because that's why we're not getting our stuff.
And for that adoption, I don't think the children ever fully settled in. They did settle a bit and things did improve, but to say that they fully settled in and that they felt like they were part of the family, I don't think they ever did.
No, I don't think so. And if they're watching right now, we love you dearly.
We do.
We want to say that right from the get-go. We try to maintain contact, and we know you guys do as well, and we do love you dearly.
And we do know that you watch. So.
Yes. And we're not mentioning your name either.
And then we've had other adoptions. So when we adopted the younger children, most of the ones we've been talking about so far have been our older children. When we adopted the younger children, they had tremendous foster homes, and the foster parents, they were grieving. It was sad for them.
Yep.
But they didn't let the children see that, and they stayed in contact after the children were placed so that the kids still had that sense of family, and they settled in really, really quick.
Yeah, we've maintained a relationship with some of the former foster parents. Wonderful, wonderful people that went above and beyond what you would ever expect. So when I say that we've covered the full spectrum of the worst to the best, we truly have, in my opinion anyways.
Yeah.
We truly have. And there's a lot of people in the foster care system are so wonderful people, and they do an incredible job, a job personally that I couldn't do. I couldn't take kids in under extreme stress and then prepare them to be adopted to another family. That to me would be one of the hardest things there is. So my hat goes off.
Why we have 18 children.
That's why we have 18, because we can't give them back. So once the children arrived here, what happened then?
So then it looks different depending on the child and their developmental level. But we always have to consider what the children are coming with, because they might be trying to replicate what they're used to. So a child that experienced a lot of abuse, that might be all they know. And it's going to take a while once they've been placed in your home to fit into the way you do things. So to say, how long does it take them to settle in? Well, they might think they're settled in because they're used to chaos and they're trying to replicate that.
Yeah, and chaos can be a really big one where they're constantly acting out, they're breaking things or doing things to get themselves in trouble because that's what they're used to. So that's a very big one. That, keep that in mind, that post-placement, once they're settling in, that you may still have some of these issues come out.
And things that they're used to. One of our adoptions, our daughter was in kindergarten just after placement, and every single time that I went to pick her up, she'd say, "Mom, are we gonna have lunch today?" And I'm like, "Yes, we're gonna have lunch." And all the other parents are looking at me like, "Why does your child have to ask that?" They didn't realize that she had just been placed for adoption. And I'm trying to reassure my daughter that in her new home, she's not going to be going without food, but that's her norm. And
that's what she came to expect.
That was important to her.
And another one of our children would steal food from other students on the school bus or actually in the school. And then claim she was very hungry, so she would manipulate the teachers into the teachers giving her more food. We always packed her a full snack lunch, didn't matter what she was doing.
And then you have to navigate what other people are thinking about you, and you might think it's okay, I don't care what other people think about you, but it's things that you might not grasp the severity of some of it. Like every day when a child's saying that you aren't feeding them, then people are going to start questioning you. That can be a hard one. And then we can go into other types of abuses that children have had. And what if dressing provocatively is what the child has been taught to do to get the attention of people, and now you've got a daughter that feels that she should dress inappropriately so that her brothers want to be her friend.
And once again, that is fulfilling a need that they have. Also, we think we should get into too, that you had brought up a good point, that a lot of times people don't understand. They don't, unless they see it for themselves firsthand, they don't understand. I think we should talk about one example of one of our children stealing. So, like I said, a lot of times people don't really realize what you're talking about until they actually witness it themselves. So I'll set up the sort of what happened. One of our children was called into the vice principal's office.
Because he was trying to replicate what he was used to. And if somebody wronged him, he would fight back because that's what he was used to.
Yes.
Before he was placed.
So he's sitting in the vice principal's office. The vice principal steps out, and I'm very familiar with the offices at the school. Vice principal steps out and phones me at home saying, so-and-so was involved in another fight again. And I said to the vice principal, I said, by the way, I said, are you in a different room right now? And the vice principal said, yes. I said, go back in your office and get him to empty his pockets. And she said, what? I said, hang up the phone right now. You cannot leave this child unaccompanied. I said, he's already gone through your desk and he's loaded his pockets. And she didn't believe me. There's no way.
Because he's already in trouble, so he's not going to do anything more.
That's right.
In her opinion.
In her opinion, and she doesn't know the child like we know the child. Once again, these people see a snapshot.
And you would think the rules that you live by, that other people are going to live by, but that's not how they were brought up.
No. So anyway, she hung up the phone, and probably 3 minutes later, she phoned me back, and she said, how on earth did you know? He had taken a bunch of stuff out of one of my drawers, and it was in his pockets. I said, because we've been trying to explain this to you, but unfortunately you had to see it for yourself. I said, now hopefully when we discuss these things with you, you'll actually believe us when we're talking about it. Because the only way that we're going to be able to help the children is if we provide a unified approach to the child, not as individualized. We have to work together as a team of people to get the same message across so they learn a new habit.
And that's the part about settling in. You might think, oh, they're settled in, we've got this big happy family, but what's normal to them might not be normal to you, and that might take a little bit longer. And it's not all children.
No, it's not.
Keep in mind that all of our adoptions have been harder to place children. So if you're not seeking a harder to place child, you might not have the same experiences as us, but we were adopting children that were harder to place. So we had more of the behaviors and more of the struggles than what others might have.
And I should mention too, that was by choice. That's the path that we chose.
Sometimes we question that path. No, we're thankful for the path that we've been on.
We love our children dearly.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And you're probably thinking, well, we don't see any of this stuff on your videos. We're not going to show you this kind of stuff. We want people to learn, but we don't want to embarrass our children.
That's right. That's really important to us.
And that's why the stuff that we're talking about are harder to place children that were between 5 and 12, not the children that are growing up in the home right now. The ones that are growing up in the home right now, they have more of the medical needs than the ones that we first adopted.
Yeah, the ones we first adopted, although they had a lot of issues, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but had a lot of issues, but
It was a more mental health type
mental
of
health
challenges.
type, yes, as opposed to physical challenges like these children have.
So the question that we started with was, how long does it take? It really depends on the child.
That's right. And everybody's going to experience something different depending on all the circumstances that we've listed out.
But there is things that you can do to help, like try and have people on board so the kids are very well prepared. I think that the more people that the children have around them that are on board with preparing them for adoption, the better the adoption's going to go.
I agree. So,
We're going to leave it up to you guys now. If you have another question, shoot us a message, and then we will do another one of these
we
talks.
love your questions, and keep them coming. If we see the same question recurring, we will do this, and we might end up actually putting this into a bit of a series, so that we're covering a number of different issues when it comes to adoption or special needs or other large family type stuff. So,
And we don't want to scare you off with the stories we had. We wouldn't have done anything differently. We are very happy with the successes that our children have had.
and we've had a huge support from our community.
And the children have made amazing progress. A lot of them are adults now, but it was worth it.
Yes, definitely was worth it.
So don't get scared by our stories. Sign yourself up and get yourself some.
So you've probably noticed that there's no comments on our YouTube channel. That's not by our choice, that's YouTube's decision to do that. So please leave us a comment in some of our other social media platforms listed below.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Till next time.